So, Oscar, really good. Thank you for joining me today and talking, about Remi and our partnership here at Hayes. I just wanted to say, I'm really excited to talk about Remi. We've been working with you guys for so long now, with many ups and downs along that journey. But I know a lot of ups as well, and I want to just really, talk about Remi and the success that you guys have had over the few years. Really, the idea of this conversation is just to unpack the journey with me and the viewers, the before, the after, and what retention marketing has, unlocked for Remi. So really just to kind of start with, Oscar, could you give us a quick snapshot of Remi, like what the brand is about, who you serve, and what you were when we first connected?
Absolutely. So we are an e-commerce company that sells custom night guards, custom retainers, and custom teeth whitening trays, and a bunch of fun accessories directly to customers. The premise of it is 1/3 of US adults grind their teeth at night. They need a night guard. A custom night guard is by far the best solution. Traditionally, a custom night guard costs $500 from the dentist. Instead, we cut out the dentist, which is the middleman. We ship an impression kit to your house. You take an impression, you ship it back to our facility. We make you that custom guard or retainer or teeth whitening tray, and then we send the finished product to you. Instead of costing $500 for one, it's $100 for two. We have a really strong subscription base. Teeth grinding is a chronic condition. If you grind your teeth today, you'll be doing it 10 years from now. And so as a result, acquiring high quality subscription customers and then keeping them is really important. And when we first started working with Hayes on the email side, we were a much smaller company than we are today. Certainly the Hayes team deserves a lot of credit for getting us to where we are. I always, when I chat with other founders and talk about Hayes Media, it really is like having a marketing team in-house. We were joking, Daniel, before we hit record here. I have a call with you. Then before that, I had a call with a colleague. Before that, that colleague had a call with another person on my team. We're talking all day long. We're on Slack. It really does feel like Hayes is an extension of my marketing team. And so you asked, like, where did we get started? We got started where our email was in sort of the infant stage, if you will. We had the typical flows, Daniel, you remember when you came in. I mean, sort of the most basic, Klaviyo recommended, almost preset flows in there. And we were doing the biggest campaigns, right? We had some campaigns around sales and holidays and all of that. We weren't doing a lot on the content side. And so that has been a big change over the last few years as we've put out a lot of educational content, pointing people to blog posts and, other less marketing, more value add reading. And the program has grown very significantly. I'd have to go back and look at the exact numbers, but it's at least 6x where we started. We've 3x'd it even within the last 12, 18 months. So we've seen some really big growth on the email side.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you talk about the setup before Hayes. I mean, I was actually looking at this for a video that I recorded, because I think it's the first series that we recorded on the YouTube channel that we've got. I was doing a quick audit of all the accounts and looking like the before Hayes and after Hayes. And it's really nice. It's really interesting to see, like, when you look back, like what kind of the snapshot of what was available then versus what's available now. I'm curious, I know it was a long time ago, so I mean, specific numbers are quite challenging. I mean, it was like over probably 4 or 5 years ago now when we officially started working on the retention side. But I'm curious if you remember, Oscar, if we could just rewind time a little bit. Do you remember what the biggest frustrations or limitations you witnessed or experienced before working with Hayes from the email and SMS side?
Yeah. So I know from the meta performance side of the world how important testing is. And certainly on our website, we have always done rigorous A/B tests. Before working with Hayes, I think one of the big frustrations is we understood and knew the importance of testing, but we just didn't have the resources, the bandwidth, the time to actually do it. And so one of the biggest differences, if you were to look in our Klaviyo account and go back to the beginning versus where we are now, or even where we, started with the Hayes team, is we went from almost 0 tests to constantly testing everything. Even today, we've tested the wazoo out of every flow, and still we've got tests running almost all the time because there's always more to test. There's always more to experiment with. You never really run out. I should say the Hayes team gives or provides 99% of the ideas for that and also executes on it. So I should go back to what I said before, which is you never run out. I think I probably would have run out. But when you're working with folks that know what they're doing, then it seems like you never run out. That's been a huge uplift. Like if we really look at the growth in our email strategy, we increased the number of campaigns dramatically, increased the number of flows dramatically. We did a ton of testing on what types of campaigns work best, subject line tests, plain text versus imagery, how much copy can be in one email, where the CTA buttons should go, how to drive up the conversion rate and the CTR and all of that. And same thing on the flow side. We've increased the number of flows. This morning we were talking about the performance of this newer ultra high value customer segment flow that we're working on. And so I think to boil it down to really answer your question, like it's about testing, it's about increasing the volume of the campaigns and of the flows, and it's about getting more strategic on what that content is. Again, when we started, like we were, hey, 40% off Black Friday sale. And then the next thing the customer would hear from us is, hey, 40% off Christmas sale.
Yeah.
And now we're sending 20 value add, relevant, how to take care of your night guard, how to get better sleep, whatever it is in between those. And as you well know, Daniel, like the non-marketing true content emails often drive a bunch of more revenue than the marketing focused ones because you're getting people to click and then they're reading a blog post and then they're on the site. It's just a much more mature strategy than when we were trying to do it our own.
And I appreciate that. And I just want to also shout out Remi and yourself for a second, because like you said, we come up with the ideas, right? We can come up with ideas all day and prioritize what works. But the freedom that Remi gives Hayes to then take those ideas and go ahead and implement them. For example, these are value-driven email campaigns. To do those well, we needed to have basically a page for them to go to digest more content. So that's why we have a blog. And it's so surprising nowadays when, we mention blog ideas to some people and they're just straight away, no, we're not doing that. It's like, it doesn't matter how much you say, hey, we've got proof. It's just instant, no, that's too much time, too much bandwidth. But I know that you're very open to our advice. And if you have trust in us. So if it makes sense, you're like, yeah, let's do it. And we make it happen.
But trust, and I appreciate that. But the truth is, trust is earned. Yeah, we were in such a infantile position when Hayes came in on the email side that I knew kind of almost no matter what we do, it's going to be better than this. And so Hayes came in and had all these ideas. And I trusted the Hayes team because, again, you can't do worse than the minimum, which is what we were doing. But since those ideas have performed so well, it was those ideas and it was the work and it was the mentality. And I can speak to the mentality in a minute, but it was the mentality from the Hayes team that earned the trust that now is the foundation where, the Hayes team comes and says, hey, we want to test this new flow. And generally my answer is just, what do you need from me? It's not even a yes or no. You give me the idea. It's almost an assumption that I'm going to say yes because there's so much trust. And so then it's just, okay, what do we do? The mentality is really important. And so when you find a partner and they treat your company like their own company, from the founder perspective, that's really what earns the trust. It's sort of like, you've got the employee who, goes to Vegas and you've got the $100 per diem and hey, what do you know? It's $100 spent every day.
Yeah.
And then the employee goes to Vegas with $100 per diem, but the sometimes they take clients out, they hit the per diem, but sometimes they don't. Okay, this person isn't just trying to squeeze me for every dollar. They're thinking like an owner. They're thinking like a team player. They're thinking like, Remi and the success of Remi is a reflection of, me, the employee. And I think the same is true for agencies and partners. And, treating my company like your company is probably the number one thing that you can do, that anybody can do to gain my trust. And that is sort of the foundation of the communication, the balance between the Hayes team and the Remi team. I know that I talked before about the Hayes team feeling like an extra arm, an extension of the Remi team, but also it's like an integrated piece of the body, to extend the analogy, right? Like you really are part of the company and thinking about my company and our success as your company and your success.
Yep.
So I appreciate the compliment you started with, which is that I'm an open and trusting guy, but I actually will turn that back on you and say that the openness and the trust has been earned.
Yeah. And that happens with time as well. You, like I said, the ups and the downs. And when the downs are happening, it's like, okay, how do we react in those moments? And I think, again, like you said, we all team together and take responsibility in those moments. You say, what do you need from me? We say, we need this, we can go do this. And it's that communication that's so important.
Let's be specific about the down moments. I'm an open book here, and so I'm happy to share. As you well know, we had a 6-month stretch a couple years back, I don't remember exactly when, where we made the strategic decision to ratchet down marketing spend to acquire new customers. Made for a lot of different reasons, tariffs and costs and what was going on in our manufacturing facility, which we own because we're vertically integrated, but also just, broadly, like it's important to us to acquire customers in a sustainable and profitable way. And so if we see that for whatever reason that's not working, we have the ability and have, in this one case in the past, decided to just ratchet down, new customer acquisition. Obviously, from an email perspective, when we're acquiring and pushing fewer leads to the site, the flows, which are an important part of our overall email strategy, they suffer, right? I mean, even the campaigns, because you've got maybe a shrinking list, but certainly the flows. If the sessions on your site are reduced by half, then, your flow revenue is going to take a hit as well. And I think the way that the Hayes team reacted to this decision, even though, Hayes team, right, it's performance marketing. You are paid on your performance, and that performance is in part dependent on my company, what's going on with us and the sessions that we're driving to the site. So by me cutting my marketing spend, I'm also cutting your ability to perform successful flows and candidly, our bill shrunk. That has the potential to impact and upset some partners. In this case, it really, the understanding from the Hayes team was deep, which kind of goes back to our previous conversation about you treating our business like your business. But it's even more than that, because it shows that you look at this with the long haul. I didn't come to you and say, hey, listen, we're going to stop advertising forever. I came to you and said, hey, listen, for these 3 reasons, we need to cut back ad spend. I don't know if it's going to be for 2 months or 6 months, but it's going to have an impact on my business and it's going to have an impact on your business. And the answer was very much like, we'll get through this together. All good. And I appreciate that. So yes, you opened with, we've been working together for many years through the ups and the downs, mostly ups, but there have been some downs. And sometimes those downs, they strengthen the long-term partnership even further.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it is like something we every time we bring on a new team member, one of the values here at Hayes is, you treat the client's company as your own. There's literally the phrase, and it's like that the standards that upholds and day by day is, I think it just teaches good, like overall good values in life. Like if you go into something, give it your all. I hear too many people talking nowadays. I hear podcasts like, your main priority should go create your own business, and your second priority should be making income every single month so that you can support your business. I agree with those things, but then a lot of people are saying you should do enough just to above the point where you don't get fired in your company. And I think that just teaches very bad behavior, essentially. Like if you're going to give a little bit to that and then give your all to this, I think that creates a bit of an imbalance in life. And I'm always one that, like, I try and give my all to everything. And I think that's easier to in my brain, and maybe for everyone works a bit differently, but for me, it's all easier in my brain when I know if I just give my all to everything, my relationships and my work, everything, then I just feel more at ease. I feel like, okay, I'm doing my best, basically. And like that has been a good reflection with Remi in those ups and downs. Fortunately, on email and SMS, I think it's been quite consistent. We have problems with bots as well, like bot attacks on the list where there was like hundreds of thousands of bots coming in. That was crazy, and we were able to, partner with people who could help, like Arita, which we talked about on the channel a few times. Also, just being able to troubleshoot it and make changes where we need to
shoot it fast too.
Yeah.
Right. Doesn't to think it's like, oh, we have this problem. All right, let's set a meeting tomorrow to put an action plan together for, what we're going to do over the next couple of weeks. It was like, Daniel, we've got something going on here. And then minutes later, Oscar, we figured out the solution and we're working on it. And the next day, we're halfway done. We'll be done by this evening. And that quick response time is important in situations like that to really mitigate the damage. But yeah, we've actually, I had almost forgotten about that. I'm sure it's trauma and real strong memory in your mind. It's less in mine because truthfully, you were the janitor on that one. You cleaned that mess up. And I heard about it, of course, and was involved, but I wasn't the one doing the actual cleanup. And so I'm sure it sticks out in your mind more than mine. Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, it happened on Remi, and then I think on another two clients, a couple of weeks in between. I think it happened on Remi first, and then the other clients that I played onto. I don't know if the bots choose a specific day or time or month to do that attack. But interestingly, it was on subscription businesses because you can sign up to Recharge or you can sign up to Smarter through the website. And a lot of the websites that do that then don't have capture enabled. And yeah, anyway, it was a whole thing that I found out. And now I'm an expert in eliminating bots, apparently, which is always good. It's always good to know.
They will ever have to use your expertise for again, but now we know.
Yeah, now we know. Great. No, it's good to reflect on these things. But I'm curious, Oscar, kind of trying to switch, the vibe a little bit. I'm curious, before, and maybe not so much email and SMS side, but just Hays as a whole, were you skeptical at first? And did you have any hesitations before actually working with us?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I met Jordan Hays through cold outreach. And I mean, God, I get 30 random cold emails every morning in my inbox now. We were a much smaller company then, so it was fewer. But yeah, it was just some British guy reaching out to me and pitching his services. I think in that moment, we needed help so badly that I was trying to listen. And the Hays pitch was really, it was the perfect pitch for me. Because it was very much like, we're small, you're tired of being treated like a small fish in a big pond. Well, this is a small pond, so you're actually going to be a big fish here, and we're going to give you, not just the time of day, but really the attention that an upstart brand at the time requires. Now, thankfully, in large part due to the help from the Hays team, like we're quite a, it's an 8-figure brand. We're a pretty big fish. And now we went from feeling like a big fish in a small pond to still feeling like a big fish in a small pond. We're just a much bigger fish now. Throughout that whole time, it's never felt like we were pitched by another agency and, we're just one of many clients. And I could tell from Jordan's pitch at the beginning when we first met that was always his intention. And here we're sitting here, years later, and that is true. And so, yeah, I was very skeptical at the beginning. Now I introduce Hays to all my founder friends.
Yeah.
And I think we'd have to go back and actually look, but I think probably more than half of the Hays clients have come from warm introductions, either through directly people who I know or introductions from people who I made introductions to.
Definitely.
That I think that says a lot. And the way that your reputation travels via word of mouth and not, fancy attention grabbing meta ads speaks to the quality and the type of group that you're trying to build.
No, definitely. And actually, I'm curious on, because you mentioned that you've got a lot of cold emails. Again, we're getting those as well now. So I also see what the pictures look like. And to be honest, most of them just blur into one, if I'm honest. Do you remember what stood out in our approach versus, say, other agencies that you've spoken with or considered?
I think it was Jordan standing out, truthfully. I think at that phase, it was less about here's the services we offer, here's our pricing, here's, what we've done, and more of a connection of I understand how Jordan thinks, what he values, and those are in alignment with how I think and what I value. And so now let's talk about the logistics of how the partnership is going to work and how the fee is going to be structured. And by the way, that partnership has evolved over time where we've added things on, we've taken things off, we've changed frequency of certain things, and even how you charge us has changed over time, right? And so all that changes, but what stays the same is, Jordan and his way of thinking, the vision that he sets for Hayes Media and the culture that the people who he's brought on, like you, to be his, in the inner circle. And as you've grown, even people who you've brought on, Daniel, who are helping you, everybody fits the same important values and way of thinking, which align with mine. So what words he used in the pitch years ago, I can't quite remember, but I do remember walking away and feeling like if I was going to hire a CMO, this is the guy who I'd want to hire, CMO. How do I get him to be my CMO without, actually doing that? And it's worked out well.
No, amazing. That was really interesting. It's a good approach to have. And I know I hear this a lot with Jordan. It's actually one of the reasons why I joined the company as well. When he reached out to me, he had a definitely different approach than most agencies. I mean, we even run the agency very differently internally than a lot of other agencies. There's a lot of freedom in the culture. No such thing as hierarchies, which is again something very different, but just works. It allows us to give that personalized approach that you mentioned, Oscar. We've grown now massively. I mean, we have 3 email marketers within Hayes, all handling different accounts, but each one treats those accounts as their own. And they're actually limited to 3 accounts per person. And we don't go over that because I used to be in agencies and they give like 10 accounts to one person, and it's impossible to get anything done when you've got we tested it. More than 3 accounts, it gets very difficult to keep the quality of service that high. And so that's why we limit it at that now when it's working so far. But it does make it harder to scale, obviously. But, good for sacrifice now over quality.
Yeah, I was about to say, not everything is about super scaling, right? Sometimes it's about taking really good care of your existing clients, and they grow to the point where, we've grown so many magnitudes more from when we first started this partnership that, you could have landed 3 or 4 more clients.
Yeah.
And we stayed the same size, or we've grown 3, 4, 5, 6 more than that, probably X at this point. And, it's one much bigger, more demanding client, but, scales better that way probably than a bunch of new folks.
No, definitely. Okay, Oscar, well, this has all been really good. I'm not going to keep you any longer, but I do want to ask you one last question. And it would be, if you had to sum up our partnership in one sentence, what would it be?
It's a good question. I think a lot of the themes that we touched on here would be included in this sentence, right? So the trust, an extension of my team, feeling almost like a third arm, if you will. I think the Hayes team and the Remi team act in unison, which is an ideal scenario for an e-commerce company and a marketing agency to be in. It's a symbiosis, maybe is one word I would use, but it's that trust, the mutual respect, the collaboration, the constant phone calls and many, many, many times a day Slacks back and forth, not just between me and you or me and Jordan or, my directors and people on your team, but at every level.
Yeah.
It really is, the Hayes team is an extension of the Remi team. is probably the simplest way to put it.
I like that. The Hayes team is an extension of the Remi team. I love it. It's a perfect sentence. Oscar, really, thank you for your time. And for those that are watching, that sounds like us before Hayes. Just know, with the right retention strategy and the right partnership, your brand can achieve and unlock the similar results. So yeah, again, Oscar, thank you so much for your time, and catch you very soon over Slack, I'm sure.
And call later today.
Call that in today. See, yeah, cool.